Greetings all, this is Catherine with Silver Spiral Tarot, and I'm doing a VR today to Brian Cormack Carr's hashtag Why Do You Tarot? I think it's a really interesting tag, and so I was looking forward to doing it. But this is my third try, so let's see. So I'll just start. How did tarot come into your life? I don't remember how tarot came into my life. I had a deck when I was a teenager. It was a Rider-Waite Smith, and I literally don't remember where it came from. But I feel pretty certain I must have been the one to buy it. I know that I used it in college, and I had that deck for about 10 years, and at least 10 years. And I would read for other people, never for money. It didn't even occur to me to do that. And I read for friends, and I did do some reading for strangers. There was when I lived in Boston, there was a psychic tea room, and it was a marvelous time, and I would go up there and do some readings there. And then I stopped. So, stage 2, when did it come back into my life is probably a good question. And it came back probably about 8 years ago. And it was a kind of interesting route. I was experiencing frustration with my writing, and I was wandering around the bookstore and came across Corrine Kenner's book, Tarot for Writers, and I thought, it's interesting. And so I picked that up, and then I picked up the Llewellyn Tarot. So it was my first deck in, a decade or so, a couple decades maybe. And I thought, let's see how I do with this. So I picked it up, and I tried to work my way through it, and I was still having difficulties. I had a lot of things going on. But then I started collecting a few other decks, and then last year I decided it was time to hit this issue head on. And so I sat down with Corrine Kenner's book, and by this time I had 5 decks. I had a steampunk. I had another Llewellyn deck that I've totally forgotten the name of, but I have it right over here. A steampunk deck, a fantasy deck, and can't remember what the other one was. But I sat down with those 5 decks and that book and worked my way through one of the exercises. It took me 3 hours to get a small paragraph. But during that 3 hours, a couple of different things happened. One, I actually accomplished the exercise. I can give myself a star for that one. And I felt that it was a bit more than a star for just showing up, because I really did produce a paragraph and some characters that I liked. So I was happy with that. And I journaled about it. So, and then I started thinking a little bit more, and I YouTube a lot. So we're basically into this, how do you use tarot for others, and how has it changed, kind of question 2 and 3 together. And so I said, well, I had 2 questions. One was, are there other people who use tarot for writing? Obviously there must be, because somebody's written at least 1 book about it. And so I went to YouTube and started looking, and sure enough, I found some people on YouTube who mentioned using tarot for writing. I also found some blogs, so that was really neat. The other thing I discovered was the tarot community, and I started watching some of these tarot people in the community, tarot readers in the community, and I started following Simon. He was Simon Two Spirit then. Now he's Hermit's Cave. And so he was one of the first. Kelly, The Truth and Story, and Kellyanne Maddox were three that were right at the top of my list, and realized that there were a lot of other ways to use tarot. And so I thought, this is really neat. And as I was delving into those other ways to use tarot in your life as a practice, I started realizing that there were other ways that I could use tarot. And I began examining my tarot cards more closely and doing little spreads for myself. But that was a problem because I never have a question. So I have big questions. I mean, I was a philosophy major. I still read philosophy. I ask questions, but when I start to ask some of these other questions, let me do a name drop, tip of the hat here to Brian, because I picked up his book, Vital Vocation, and I looked at those questions. I'm like, okay, so I don't have answers for those questions, and maybe tarot decks can help me, or tarot cards can help me with that. And that's how I developed. I still don't read for people. The opportunity, I just have not gone out and looked for that opportunity. I don't necessarily live in an environment that is open to that opportunity. And you know what, that doesn't bother me because I have enough on my plate right now. What I have done is I started working on a book. And that happened also last summer. So I can definitively tell you May 17th was the day I sat down. 2017 was the day I sat down with Corrine Kenner's book. And then in August, I started a writing project with a writing partner. And we got together on one Sunday afternoon and sat down with the cards, mapped out the hero's journey for our character. I was using Arwen Lynch's book then, and I'll put the name of the book in the description box. And so that is a major way in how I use tarot now. So that is a change. I don't think way back then in college I would have actually thought of that. I think that when I did read, I did tell a story, and I was not a fortune teller. I didn't tell what was going to happen in the future. I was able to intuit that the card spread was the environment now, and able to intuit something that has followed me into the business world, where based on what's happening now, these are, what will be happening, what could be happening. These are your outcomes. That's the question, the word I'm looking for. Those would be the outcomes. And so that has not changed. That still happens. But I think that looking at tarot cards now, and this is why do you tarot? This is why I tarot. I look at tarot cards to wake up that sleeping or hiding creative thing that I have going on. And it really has. It's been a lot of fun. It has been incredibly frustrating at times, but not as frustrating as staring at a blank piece of paper or blank screen on the computer and not knowing where to go. So that is why I tarot. I tarot to write, and I tarot to reach into myself and pull that stuff out. Brian, this was a great tag, and I really appreciate it. And Thank you for doing it. It's a great idea. Bye-bye.